A lot of surprising lessons have emerged from the left over the past few days. Get your pencils out, write these down. They're a little bit counterintuitive. It turns out that our 400-year-old country, the United States of America, was actually secretly built by Somalis who came here in the 1990s. I learned that one from Democrat Congress lady Pramila Jayapal. It is apparently racist to think that Europe should be populated by Europeans. You're not allowed to think that. I learned that one from The Economist magazine. And then finally, a lesson from Jake Tapper, the very, very black man arrested for planting the January 6th pipe bombs, is actually secretly, deep down, a white guy. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. The apotheosis of this conversation about immigration, about identity, about sovereignty, specifically about Somalis, comes in the form of a video of Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey trying desperately to choke down disgusting Somali food. It's my favorite video on the whole internet right now. We'll get to that in a moment. First, I want to tell you about Everyday Dose. Go to everydaydose.com/Knowles, Knowles. It is Advent. It's not Christmas yet. It's Advent. People are very busy. You're traveling. You have family coming in. You're getting the presents. You're preparing the meal. You're working. I think you're still trying to work. Maybe you're juggling the kids. It's already a struggle making it through the modern world every other time of the year. Now, so what are you doing? Are you adding that third cup of coffee? Maybe you're adding that fourth cup of coffee. Maybe you're popping those little pouches, trying to get a little energy. Folks, drop it. I have your answer. This is where Everyday Dose comes in. Everyday Dose is coffee plus benefits. They combine high-quality coffee with powerful ingredients like lion's mane, chaga, collagen protein, and nootropics to fuel your brain, boost your focus, and give you clean, sustained energy all day long. Tastes just like coffee without the downside. No crash, no jitters, just clean, sustained energy. I love this stuff. Right now, you can get 61% off your first Coffee Plus starter kit, a free A2 probiotic creamer with over $100 in free gifts by going to everydaydose.com/Knowles or entering Knowles, KNWLES at checkout. That's everydaydose.com/Knowles, KNWLES for 61% off your first order. Everyday Dose is also available at your local Target. Don't believe your lying eyes. The man who you thought was a black man, arrested after 5 years for planting the pipe bombs in front of the DNC and the RNC on January 6th. That man, according to Jake Tapper, is actually secretly white.
Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home.
There he is. There's the guy. Now, the picture, for those of you watching, the picture of the smiling, very, very obviously phenotypically black man, that picture that's there was not actually being shown by CNN. CNN just wanted its viewers to believe what Jake Tapper was saying, which is that he was a white guy. This does remind me of the killing of Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin, this young black guy who was killed in an altercation that became very controversial with this guy, George Zimmerman. And it was reported everywhere, not just by Jake Tapper, not just on CNN, but everywhere in the liberal media. I think it was, 2012? It was reported that George Zimmerman, the killer of Trayvon Martin, was a white guy. And then weeks later, pictures of George Zimmerman emerged. And George Zimmerman was the most Hispanic-looking guy you've ever seen in your entire life. Just a big, giant, cholo-looking guy. And doesn't look really even slightly white. Not nary an octoroon white was George Zimmerman. Or at least did he look. He was so obviously Hispanic. And what did all of the establishment media do? They said, well, he's a white Hispanic. A white Hispanic, oh, and these are different groups. It's like a white black. I guess you can be biracial, but you told me he was a white guy. He's obviously a Hispanic guy. Now you're saying, well, we weren't wrong. He's a white Hispanic. The dark Hispanics are the ones that are really good and pay their taxes and are wonderful and unobjectionable. But the moment a Hispanic commits a crime, or not even a crime, even just commits a controversial killing, then he becomes white. Because white, in their parlance, just means bad. It's just a bad guy. So in that way, I guess Jake Tapper is right. The guy who planted the January 6th pipe bombs, he might be black as the heart of the Congo, but because he did something bad, something that's inconvenient for the liberal order, he is white. He is, in fact, he has to be white. Because white people have to do the bad stuff and non-white people have to do the good stuff. People were surprised by this. A CNN panelist sounded off, said that a lot, not just her, but a lot of people were shocked that the January 6th pipe bomber was a black guy.
I should believe what he says?
No, maybe he put a bomb at the DNC because he believed the Democrats stole the election because Republicans and conspiracy theorists pushed that. And he put the bomb at the RNC because the vice president who was about to be sworn in was going to ride by that area. There are many scenarios that the prosecution will have to play out this case. But I'm gonna say the thing out loud that I think everyone is not saying and is actually surprised, and why I think Janine Pirro is actually saying it. I think the fact that this is a black man is surprising to people. I think people thought this was going to be a white man that did this. They were going to be able to say he was a part of the progressive left. And the fact that it's a black man that is saying, I too was susceptible to conspiracy theorists that the president and conservative podcasts were pushing that this election was stolen is a fact that they were not expecting, and now everyone is on their heels and they're trying to spin it. And I think that might be also why you think, let's not believe his actual story right now. He's trying to get both sides.
Possible.
I mean, so.
Okay, what I'm supposed to say now, what I, a right-wing political commentator, am supposed to say, a podcaster, what I'm supposed to say is, this is horribly racist of this woman. This is horribly racist. She assumed it would be a white guy and then it was a black guy. What a racist woman. That's what I'm supposed to say. And if I were appealing to race hustling, what I'm supposed to say is, what are you talking about? Black guys are way more violent than white guys. Of course, it was a black guy. But can I say something without everybody getting mad? I actually agree with that lady. And you do too. You do too. And it makes sense that you do too. We were all kind of surprised it was a black guy. Allegedly a black guy. Yeah, I think we were all surprised because this is the sort of crime that is usually committed by a white guy. It's the sort of crime that is usually committed by a white leftist. So she's trying to spin it all up. She's trying to make him seem like he's a right winger. Now, he might be. We don't know really very much about him. We do know that his family is involved in very left-wing businesses opposing the Trump administration. We do know that he committed an act of anarchist terrorism, which is overwhelmingly associated with the left. So I have some ideas. However, she's trying to spin it and say, no, this isn't the stereotypical person who commits this crime. And I guess that's true. The stereotypical person who commits this crime is a white leftist, like the Weather Underground. The stereotypical person who commits this crime is the Antifa guy who threw an explosive at my event at the University of Pittsburgh, who's in federal prison right now. It's true. It's not that white people are violent and black people are not violent. Obviously, if you just look at crime statistics, black guys are much more likely to commit violent crime. But it's usually not this kind of violent crime. The real kind of crazy domestic terrorism stuff is more likely to be white guys, specifically white leftists. So it's weird. Okay, I'm going to get credit where credit's due. Okay, she makes a good point. I was surprised as well. Can I say that? Now everyone's going to be mad. Now, speaking of black men, Ilhan Omar just went on CBS Face the Nation, and she was asked about the White House's comments that the Somalis don't really assimilate and they should assimilate. And she came to the conclusion that asking Somalis to assimilate to American culture is Nazism.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. Somali, we are in this country as Americans. Yeah. We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
So the thing I notice about her answer is even beyond the ridiculous claims. Stephen Miller is a Nazi, this right-wing Jew in the Trump administration who just wants to deport criminals. He's a Nazi for doing that. Beyond the Somalis, they contribute to America. They don't. They're net takers. They're not productive. They're counterproductive to America because they defraud our welfare system to the tune of $1 billion. And then when they're not defrauding the welfare system, they're just using the welfare system in a I guess, legitimate way, but they're still taking resources from the country. But beyond those two things, the most notable part about her answer is she never actually refutes Miller's point. Miller's point is that the Somalis don't assimilate. That's what he's saying. She goes, he's a Nazi, and Somalis are great, and they're productive, and they add to the economy. But do they assimilate? Do they assimilate, Ilhan? Even Ilhan Omar doesn't totally assimilate. She dresses differently than Americans do. And actually, in some ways, the way she dresses is more tasteful than the way that some Americans do. I'm not even knocking it on the substance. I'm just pointing out they don't assimilate. The Somalis don't assimilate. And it's not just them. We don't just beat up on the Somalis. A lot of immigrant groups don't assimilate. And that's bad. And part of the proof that that's bad is that the Democrats don't even answer the question because the Democrats don't want them to assimilate either. And at the very least, they know that they do not. Here's a little bit more proof, and it's my absolute favorite video going around the internet right now. This is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who has to suck up to the Somalis because they're the people who elect him because they conquered Minneapolis. So Jacob Frey, he goes out there, he tries to babble out a few words of Star Wars language every now and again to suck up to the Somalis. He'll stand there as the Somali Minneapolis police official starts saying that they're going to fight the Trump administration, federal law enforcement, ICE. But he says it like, Mishigashu Han Solo, and then Jacob Frey doesn't understand a lick of this, but he's just kind of nodding along. Yes, oh yes, we love whatever you're saying in Somalian. We totally agree. Yes, go live long and prosper. He said, that's not even the right one. Anyway, so he has dinner at some Somali restaurant, and he's sitting there eating out of paper plates and whatever kind of flatware they've assembled, thrown together in the Somali restaurant. He's sitting next to some Somali guy, and he puts on one of the least persuasive performances I've ever seen. Now, before we get to that, before we get to the food that man found obviously repulsive, I want to tell you about good, delicious American food from Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com, use promo code Knowles. This episode is sponsored by Good Ranchers. You know what I'm looking forward to most this Christmas season? It's not watching my kids' faces light up underneath the tree. It's not the spirit of penitential reverence and anticipation as we await the commemoration of our Lord's birth and we look ahead to the second coming. Okay, no, those actually, they might be. But you know what's right underneath that? Delicious, fat, tasty Good Ranchers steak. Right now, you can give a Good Ranchers gift box to the people you care about, because when you give Good Ranchers, you're not just sending premium 100% American-raised meat, you're giving someone a reason to gather, to slow down, to get together, share a meal that means something. I hosted my family reunion over the weekend, and maybe I'm telling tales out of school. My Uncle Bud comes up to me. He was at my house. He goes, Michael, I got to know. Is the Good Ranchers, I want to do a freezer check. Do you really have, I open it up. Of course, my freezer is filled with Good Ranchers. I said, listen, I would not lie to you. It's true, I like some products more than others. I said, I freaking love, you need to get Good Ranchers right now. High quality beef, chicken, pork, seafood, all sourced from American farms. Gifting is easy. Pick a box, add a note, schedule a delivery. I love it. Right now, spend less time prepping meals, more time with the people you love. GoodRanchers.com, promo code Knowles. Get $40 off your first order when you subscribe. Get free premium cuts, chicken thighs, Wagyu burgers, which are unbelievable. Bacon, every order for life. GoodRanchers.com, code Knowles. $40 off plus free meat for life. GoodRanchers.com. Let's get back to the table. Without further ado, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey trying to choke down whatever it is exactly meant by the phrase Somali food. It's there. He's got one bite in his mouth. He's got the spoon and the tell that this is gross. is, well, one, he looks like he's about to retch. He's going to toss his cookies or whatever. I don't think Somalis make cookies, but whatever he's eating, he's going to toss it. And he's sitting there, and he's got this spoon. He's going, and then he just uses his spoon like he's a little toddler who doesn't want to eat his vegetables. He's using his spoon to just move the food around in the bowl. He never once takes another bite. Man, the less active his mouth is at taking another bite, the more active his spoon is. He's moving around. He does the okay sign. Oh, Ahmed, there's this guy sitting next to him just grinning ear to ear. And you can't tell if it's because he's enjoying the fact that he thinks Jacob Frey is enjoying the Somali food, or if he's enjoying the fact that Jacob Frey obviously hates it. He gets a kick out of the power dynamic here. But whatever it is. Oh, Ahmed, you've done it again. Yes. Good. Just isn't the word. Oh, boy. Oh, yes. Hello. Would you like another bowl, Han Solo? Oh, no, please, Ahmed. I couldn't possibly have another bite. No. Couldn't do it. Absolutely humiliating for Jacob Frey. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But this is a warning. Some of us conservatives are going to look at this and say, take that, Minnesota. Minnesota, you guys are libs. You're the only state that voted against Reagan in 84. You've been libs for a long time, and you get what you deserve. The fact that you've been overrun by Somalis, yeah, you deserve that. And the fact that you have to undergo this humiliation ritual, Jacob Frey, where you're eating this Tatooine slop and you have to choke it down with a pained smile on your face, that's what you deserve. That's coming to a town near you. That's coming to a city near you. Because of the sheer scope of mass migration. The largest movement of people in recorded history has been the movement of people into the United States since 1965. That was true 10 years ago, by the way. All the more so true today as the migration has kept up. One of the big problems about migration is they don't just stay in the first place that they land. So it's a Minnesota problem right now. It's going to be everywhere else problem soon enough for a couple of reasons. One, people move, and this is a country, and you're able to move from one state to another state. And two, because the native population of the United States, across races, it's not even just a white person problem. Across what races, the native population of the United States doesn't have kids, and the immigrants have a ton of kids. So it's going to shift the demographics even more. And this round of immigrants doesn't assimilate that well. There are always problems of assimilation, even in the best of circumstances. Early 1920s, where there's really no welfare and where there's rampant discrimination against immigrant groups, and where those immigrants come here, especially you think of the Irish had previously come, and then the Italians, the Jews, people from Southern and Eastern Europe coming in, and they say, hey, no, we're not speaking Italian in our home. Get rid of the Yiddish. We're going to assimilate. We have to. We're going to be in trouble in this country. Obviously, we're not in that situation anymore. Now, the predominant culture says, don't assimilate. Our culture sucks. Your culture's awesome. Pass me more of that cantina gruel that Jacob Frey's choking down. The other reason, though, I think that the clip has gone viral, other than how funny it is to watch him choke it down, is because the last desperate argument for mass migration, the last one, they say, oh, these guys, they're not committing any crime. You say, first of all the illegal ones, by definition, are committing crimes. And two, they actually do commit a lot of crimes. And actually, the ones who come across the border, they all work with the cartels. And so, no, they do commit a lot of crime. Okay, well, they don't really use welfare resources. Yes, they do. They use way more welfare resources than the native population of the United States. And in a lot of cases, they just defraud the system to the tune of $1 billion to send it to a Somalian terror group called Al-Shabaab. So, no, they do. They're not a net positive for the American economy. It's difficult to make the argument they're a net positive. Okay, well, what's the final desperate argument? They say, but the food. Yes, your sister might have been raped on the street and your home might have been broken into and you can't walk out at night after 8 p.m. But have you ever had an authentic street taco? Oh, golly, isn't it so great? Even taco, I was like, I'll take it or leave it. I don't really care about tacos. But it takes like 2 immigrants into a country to get the food. You don't need 50 million people to get a taco. It takes one guy to make a taco, and then that guy can teach other people here. And you don't need. So even if you do like, I'm lukewarm on tacos, but even if you really like tacos, you don't need this many migrants. You need like 2 of them. But the funniest thing about this clip is even that argument falls flat because no one likes Somali food because it's gross. I was talking to an associate of mine the other day who's a Kurd. He's Iraqi, but he's from Kurdistan. And we actually in Nashville, there are a lot of Kurds. And Kurds make great food. A lot of people from the Middle East, the Levant, make really good food. I don't want it all the time, but I'll eat it. I'll get into a nice kebab, a nice little shawarma. Okay. I love Indian food. I know you're not supposed to say this on the right. You have to hate Indians now. I really like Indians. I really like Indian food. I like all that. I like Chinese food. I like Thai food. No one likes Somali food. Nobody likes it. So even that argument, okay, now we take that away. So then the question, which I posed on the show last week, why are we taking these people in? Why? And the only argument is we feel bad. We feel bad for them, which comes out of a good place, a place of Christian charity. It's misplaced because we're doing the wrong thing about that. But okay, I get it. We feel bad for them and we feel bad about ourselves. We believe, erroneously in most cases, that we have wronged every people of the world, that we've committed some crime and our penance is that we need to open our borders and lose our country. And you can kind of make the plausible argument when it comes to Latin America, kind of. I don't find it persuasive, but you can kind of make it, okay, yeah, we took some lands that were previously controlled by the Spanish, and okay. You can't make it with Somalia. You could kind of make the argument with Afghanistan. Well, we went into Afghanistan again. I think it was totally justified. Or Iraq. But you can't make it with Somalia. We've only ever tried to help Somalia, and they've never contributed anything to our country. So why do we take them in? The only reason is guilt. Now, this has led to a major change in President Trump's view of immigration. And I can't believe this went entirely unnoticed. This has been the big issue, specifically Trump's big issue since 2015. Over the weekend, he radically changed his stance on immigration towards something that I have been calling for many years, and some other conservatives who are particularly a little more rock-ribbed have been calling for many years. And it seems like nobody noticed it. We'll get to that in a moment. First, I want to tell you about Leaf Filter. Go to leaffilter.com/Knowles. Leaf Filter is not just another gutter guard. It's a trusted name built to last with years of relentless engineering behind it. Those hood-style knockoffs, they cannot keep up in heavy rain. Water pours right over the edge, straight to your foundation. In lighter rain, leaves and debris flow right in the gap. Leaf Filter works better because it is topped by surgical-grade stainless steel and micro mesh, so water is channeled in while debris is filtered out. Every installation comes with a lifetime clog-free guarantee. They are trusted by over 1 million homes. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will even clean out, realign, and seal your gutters before installing. Do not settle for a knockoff. Protect your home with Leaf Filter. Do it. If you're like me, you don't want to be getting up on that ladder, digging muck out of your gutters, causing problems with your walls, problem with your foundation. Don't do it. Start protecting your home today with Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system. Schedule your free inspection at leaffilter.com/Knowles. That is up to 35% off at leaffilter.com/KNOWLES. See representative for warranty details. In this episode, very, very important episode of Michael Land. Michael Land, the Sharia survivor. I sit down with author and human rights activist Sabatina James to hear her extraordinary and harrowing story from being promised to marry her cousin as an infant, to escaping a forced marriage, to surviving the threat of an honor-based death sentence under Sharia law, her parents traveling around trying to murder her. Sabatina opens up about the brutality that she faced under Islam and how she found freedom, Christianity, and a new mission to rescue others still trapped in that system. Check out this teaser.
I was born in a little village in Pakistan. In my case, I was promised to my cousin when I was born. There in that living room of my parents, my mother and my father, and a Muslim scholarly person, and my cousin from Pakistan, they had invited him to come over. And you know how they did that? They adopted him as their son.
To get around the immigration visa.
Yes, so he was adopted. The Muslim scholar, he folded his hands said, you know what happens in Islam when you leave the religion? And I knew what happens. It's the death penalty. Normally you get 3 days. That's Sharia law. You get 3 days.
To recant.
It's torturing the convert so that he can become Muslim again. And if they don't, then you kill them. Please don't let us do what we have to do otherwise.
Watch full episode now on the Michael Knowles YouTube channel for the uncensored ad-free version. Subscribe to DailyWire Plus. President Trump has just radically changed his immigration position, and no one's talking about it. Trump posts on Truth Social an image of a block of text that was not original. It had been tweeted out by Geiger Capital, but Trump just takes this block of text and tweets it. What does the guy say? It says, a century ago, President Calvin Coolidge signed into law the Immigration Act of 1924. He stated plainly, new arrivals should be limited to our own capacity to absorb them. America must be kept American. For this purpose, it is now necessary to enact a policy of restricted immigration. The 1924 Act passed the House and Senate with overwhelming support. Democrats and Republicans agreed. It introduced new tight immigration quotas, new visa requirements. The Border Patrol outright banned immigrants from certain countries that we viewed as incompatible with our culture. It dramatically reduced the number of people coming into the country, provided an opportunity for the recent great wave of immigrants to assimilate. By the 40s and 50s, American society thrived with a booming economy, rising middle class, common culture, and limited immigration. The act was in place until 1965. Since then, we have experienced decades of historic immigration, both legal and illegal. Today, we have higher levels of foreign-born than the early 1900s by both raw number and percentage of the population. This mass immigration has also included vastly different cultures than the mostly European immigrants we accepted then. It's obvious that we once again need to make a national policy shift, and it should be bipartisan. It's time for another Immigration Act. So it's not that Trump wrote that, but he just posted that block of text without any further comment, as if to say, I endorse all of this text. And it's really crucial because there are 3 views you can hold on immigration. One is the liberal view. It's held by the left and by the Chamber of Commerce Republicans, which is we need more illegal immigration. We don't want to do a thing about illegal immigration. The only thing we want to do is give them amnesty, encourage even more of it. We want illegal immigration and we want legal immigration. Then there's the I'll call it the proceduralist conservative answer. This is kind of squishy, but this was GOP orthodoxy for decades, which is we got to do something about illegal immigration. But we just want them to come here legally. Some people would go further. They would say, you know what? I want to stop illegal immigration and I want more legal immigration than ever. So the problem's not the immigration, it's just how you do it. It's not the substance of what's happening, it's the procedure to get there. And by the way, that position was Trump's position. President Trump campaigned on that. This was one area where I disagreed with President Trump on the campaign trail. You know, obviously, people are going to have disagreements. President Trump, he gets it right 99.789% of the time. But on certain things, I've been pretty blunt about my disagreements with the White House. In the first term, I disagreed with the First Step Act, a few other things around the IVF, a few other things along the way. But that was the Trump position, and I think it was probably the only politically salient position. In fact, had I been advising the Trump campaign, I was not, but had I been advising the Trump campaign back in 2016, I might have told him to endorse that position. Because that was probably the most based position, the most right-wing, conservative position you could hold at the time. We want to stop illegal, but we want more legal immigration. But there was always the elusive third position, which is the conservative position, which is, hey guys, it's not just the procedure, okay? It's the substance. We just have too many immigrants from places that are too incompatible with the United States, and we're not assimilating them at all, and we just need to stop it. I mean, this is my position on immigration. I don't hold an eternal for all times ideological position. We either need lots of immigration or we need to totally cut immigration off entirely. My view of this issue, like my view of virtually all issues, puts prudence first as the paramount political virtue. It says, look, sometimes it's fine or maybe even good to have immigration. And sometimes it's bad. And you know what? In the 19-teens, you're going to have one immigration policy, and in the 1920s and 30s, you're going to have a different immigration policy. And it kind of just depends on the circumstances on the ground, because politics is a practical science. It's an art, the art of inclusion. And now I think we are very clearly at a place where we need drastically less migration of all sorts. And Trump just endorsed that view. That is radical. Now, I think that's where most people are. I think most people, not most people on TV, not most people in Congress, but most actual Americans, if you talk to most actual Americans, that's where they are. They say, it's just crazy, man. You know, I get on the train, I walk down the street, I don't hear English. And people are forming their own little enclaves. They're not assimilating. They are trying to get one over on the native population here. In some cases, they're succeeding, defrauding us to the tune of $1 billion. It's too much. It's too much. It's creating social solidarity problems. We got to stop it. Trump endorsed that. He should be greatly encouraged in that. And we should be encouraged that he did that. And we should keep it up. This is the conservative position now. Okay? I think it was the conservative position, even when President Trump was a little more liberal on immigration. But now there's no question. That's where the base is. That's where the president is. And that's where everyone else all along the way should be as well. Liberals absolutely horrified by this, because the liberal line is that immigrants built this country. We're a nation of immigrants. Immigrants built this country. You would even hear many conservatives say this for years. And Pramila Jayapal, Democrat Congress lady, she's taken that argument to its logical extreme. And I think she's exposed it for being so false. She comes out and she says, look, immigrants built this country. Somalis, who are immigrants, Somalis built the United States of America.
The majority of Americans across the country, regardless of political party, know that immigrants from all over the world, Somalia, India, wherever they're from, Latin America, Africa, that immigrants have built this country and make this country what it is today.
Somalis got here in the 1990s. So I think literally the first ever Somali on American soil, I think that person got here in the 1920s. There were a handful of Somalis in this country. There were none. There were exactly zero before the early 20th century. 1607, Jamestown, 1620, the Mayflower, to 1920s, not one Somali here. And yet, amazingly, the country was built over those years. But then there were essentially no Somalis until the 1990s. And then you had this flood of Somalis coming over. And they have never built anything in America. They've only taken from America as a group, not even knocking individuals, just as a group. They've never contributed anything. And the country was obviously not built by them. The country was not built by plenty of immigrants. In fact, the immigrant groups that started coming here in the 1960s, the mid to late 1960s, South Asian, lot more Middle Eastern, African, those groups, I don't think we could say they built America, because America was built before then. We beat the British twice. We came through a brutal, bloody civil war. We then conquered the Western Hemisphere, and then we won 2 world wars and conquered most of the globe before any of them ever got here. So how would you say they built America? All of our institutions, our universities, our government institutions, our cultural institutions, Hollywood, the news media, everything, Coca-Cola, Henry Ford, all of that stuff was built before any of them got there. So how could you say they built America? And in the case of the people who got here since the 1960s, everything's basically gotten worse since then. Social solidarity's frayed. We've fallen almost immediately. We fell below replacement birth rate, so we're literally a dying country. Marriage collapsed, divorce soared, abortion soared. We started killing 1 million of our own citizens a year, innocent little babies. I don't know. Things haven't. Trust in institutions has collapsed. Happiness has collapsed. Things have gotten a lot worse. So if you say, well, it was immigrants built that. You say, well, I wouldn't be bragging about it, buddy. But then it gets down to a deeper myth that we're told about the country. And it's part of this self-hating part of it. This gets back to what we were talking about. Why are we taking all these Somalis in to defraud us and commit crimes and stuff? Well, because we feel bad. And we feel bad for other people, which is a good thing. We should have charity, which has to be rightly ordered. But we also feel bad about ourselves. We have a disordered hatred of ourselves. And this manifests in the idea that immigrants built our country. The settlers, Jamestown, Plymouth, the Pilgrims, the Colonials, the brave men who fought the American Revolution, the 19th century. Yeah, they did nothing. If they did anything at all, they suck. They were slavers. For a few of them were slavers, but they were awful. They were terrible. Immigrants built this country. That's part of the lie. But it just isn't true. And I think those guys, the founding fathers, the men before the founding fathers, the settlers, those guys deserve a lot of credit. It gets to a deeper criticism. Sometimes they'll say, well, who really built this country? Even before the immigrants, it was the slaves built this country. And that isn't true either. Throughout history, all societies at some point, all areas of the world have had slavery. Many still have it today. If you look at ancient Sparta, there was a whole class of slaves called the helots. Would any historian look back and say, it was the helots who built Sparta? You know what defined Sparta? You know what made Sparta Sparta? The helots, the slaves. No. When you look at Russia, Russia had serfdom, a form of slavery until very recently. Would anyone say, oh yes, the distinguishing feature about Russia, that which gives Russia its culture, its religious culture, its music culture, Tchaikovsky, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Turgenev. No, it was none of those guys. It was the serfs. They built Russia. No. It doesn't. Obviously, they contributed. Would you say the great cathedrals that were built, the great monuments, the great works of art and sculpture, Bernini, would you say, no, actually, you know who really built all those cathedrals? It was like the random stonemason. No, they contributed. That's important, but no. The thing that gives it its form, the civilization, its distinguishing features, it's not just the worker bees. We're all worker bees to some degree. And it's these great men whose names you know, who had great thoughts and great visions and who gave these institutions shape. And a big part of the political shift in America is we always understood that. And we try to give credit where credit's due and bring people in and include people and make life more equitable. But we still defended the guys who built our civilization. And then also right around the 1960s, that changed. And we started to vilify them. And we started to hate ourselves as a consequence. And we are palpably losing our country as a result. So you have to fix that. You don't want to have an excessive love of your own excellences. That's pride, which is not only a deadly sin, it's the deadliest of the deadly sins. It's the original sin. Likewise, you don't want to have an excessive contempt for oneself. You want to have a proper love for yourself. And happily in this case, that proper love for yourself is in accord with the historical facts. We can be nice to Somalis, but we should not be suicidally nice to Somalis, and we should not pretend that Somalis built America. Didn't happen. Now, speaking of Minneapolis, St. Paul, I want to tell you about the original St. Paul. I want to tell you about the St. Paul Center. Go to stpaulcenter.com/America. I absolutely love the St. Paul Center. It is one of the organizations I most love in the country. I have my St. Ignatius Study Bible, which was edited by the founder of the St. Paul Center, Scott Hahn, on my desk. It is an absolutely invaluable resource. This episode is sponsored by the St. Paul Center because America has reached a cultural and spiritual crossroads. People are looking for the truth. They are much more interested in the eternal questions than they have been at any point in my life. In their search, more and more people are turning to the Bible for answers. We should probably have expected this because, this is like the book that shaped our whole civilization and from which virtually all of the other works of art derive. And, it's also the inspired, inerrant word of God. But even if you don't believe that, it's been around a pretty long time. A lot of people have found it pretty valuable. It's no surprise that people would rediscover this. Bible Across America is a nationwide Bible study, the biggest Bible study in the country, hosted by the St. Paul Center for Biblical Theology. It's a 7-week Bible study exploring the personal challenge of affirming Jesus as teacher and Lord. Join the movement. Learn to share your faith confidently starting November 5th. Sign up at stpaulcenter.com/America. Right now, go to dailywire.com/subscribe. This is your last chance to get our 50% off new annual membership discounts. Unbelievable. You get everything. You get all the shows. You get the docs. You get Pendragon. You get all this amazing stuff. Best deal of the year. 50% off dailywire.com/subscribe. My favorite comment yesterday is from, or this is on Friday. This is from Dr. Calibration 7984, who says, he's quoting me, says, there are a lot of sailors in the Knowles family. I was talking about how a lot of my family was in the Navy. There are a lot of sailors in the Knowles family, he writes. All of Michael's lighten the loafers proclivities have been explained. I can make this joke. I'm a crayon eater. That's it. I really walked into that one. You know, I know I've got a little tap dancing training. I play the ukulele every now and again. You know, some of this is, I'm Italian, but, you know, there's a fine line between Italian and a little bit, I don't know, flamboyant or so. I get it. But I walked right into that when I pointed out that there's a lot of Navy in it. But I tell you what, my heroic grandfather was a Navy captain. The guy had 6 kids. We had a family reunion over the weekend. 6 kids. It's pretty good. That's beating the allegations. This is the crayon eater. It's a word for Marines. Did you know that? Okay. Speaking of immigration, one last point on immigration. Then I want to get to Sydney Sweeney. I want to get to the important issues. There's a national security strategy. It was published in November. And the national security strategy looked at NATO, or NATO members, specifically looked at Europe, and pointed out that Europe is quickly losing its European identity. This is just from the national security strategy. Over the long term, it is more than plausible, that within a few decades at the latest, certain NATO members will become majority non-European. As such, it is an open question whether they will view their place in the world or their alliance with the United States in the same way as those who signed the NATO Charter. When NATO was established after the Second World War, you got all these allies who say, well, look, we are part of the West. We're not in alliance with Russia, which was the other global power at the time. We're certainly not in alliance with China, which was a backwater. We're not in alliance with India, which was also a backwater. We're European. We're Western. So America is the strongest country in the West right now, and we're going to have this broad Western alliance led by the United States. It's part of the character of our civilization. Well, what happens when all those Westerners are gone? What happens when those Europeans are gone? Not all of them, but what happens when they lose their majority in their own countries? Let's just put ourselves in the 1950s and 60s. Let's say that all of a sudden, France, all the French went away and they were replaced by Russians. Well, would it make sense for France to be in NATO at that point? NATO was the American-led coalition against the Russian, Soviet-led coalition of the Warsaw Pact. No, they would switch because you'd switch the people out. And so it wouldn't matter that you still had the Champs-Élysées and you still had the Eiffel Tower and you still had tasty baguette. Well, you wouldn't have baguette for long, I guess. You'd have borscht or something. But if you switch out the people, you switch out the country. So it wouldn't make sense for them to be in NATO. Well, okay, if we look ahead a few decades, a lot of these NATO countries won't be European anymore. That's a threat to NATO. It's a threat to the United States. NATO at least doesn't make sense. So national security strategy says our broad policy for Europe should prioritize reestablishing conditions of stability within Europe and strategic stability with Russia, enable Europe to stand on its own 2 feet, cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory within European nations, build up the businesses and the markets, encourage Europe to take action to combat overcapacity, whatever. We want Europe. The key line here is cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory, meaning to stop being majority European. Shashank Joshi, who is defense editor at The Economist, mocks this. He inveighs against this U.S. national security strategy. He says, Trump's national security strategy, make Europe white again. Then he quotes this line, it's going to become majority non-European. There's a real and more stark prospect of civilizational erasure. He's quoting from the national security strategy. He says, this is awful, he's implying. The Trump national security strategy is to make Europe white again. Shouldn't it be? Shouldn't Europe be white? What we mean by white is European. They're synonymous. Just saying his strategy is to make Europe European again. Yeah, we probably should, shouldn't we? Obviously, if we went in and said, hey, some African country is going to become white now, not black. Well, actually, that happened. Or it's happened to varying degrees, in the colonial projects up through, the protests against apartheid and all the rest. And we were told, no, that's wrong. You can't replace the native population. And yet here, the Economist defense editor seems to be implying that we have to replace the native population of Europe. Or it's racist or something. It seems to me pretty obvious that Europe should remain white. It should not become, a hotbed of Islam or something. The Muslims have been trying to conquer Europe since the 7th century. And they got pretty close starting in the 8th century, 732, Battle of Poitiers, Battle of Lepanto, Battle of Vienna, the conquest of Iberia. They've been trying it for a really long time, and now they might succeed. So if we can agree that Europe maybe should keep Europeans in it, then let me take this to the next level. What about America? Would it be bad? Let me ask you this. Would it be bad if there were no white people left in America? America was founded by white people who made alliances with Indians, who then later brought African slaves, who then later took in certain migrants who were less obviously white and not Northern European. And okay, but yeah, sure. It was white people. And then it was well over 95% white or more for the vast majority of its history. And since 1965, that's changed. So I'm not saying it's got to remain 95% white or it's got to return to being 95. But let me just ask you, would it be bad? Could you conclude it would be bad if every single white person were out of America because over time we took in the vast majority of migration being not white, and then the white people, the native population here, didn't have kids at above replacement birth rate. And so they're just, someday, many decades from now, there were no white people left in America. Would you say that would be bad? That nobody left in America had any connection genetically, as a matter of family tradition, as a matter of common culture, to the founding stock of the country that built the whole country? Would that maybe not be a great thing? You see how modestly I'm trying to frame this question? Because I think most people of all backgrounds, immigrant, non-immigrant, white, black, yellow, red, everybody in the middle, I think everybody would agree that would be probably not great, probably not advisable. Something would be a little wrong, not quite fitting about that. Okay. Well, then that means that the conversation over national quotas and what kind of immigration we're taking in, nationally, ethnically, everything in between, that means that is a legitimate question. Now, obviously, that was how we talked about immigration until, in fact, even today, but certainly until 1965 and even today. You're just not supposed to admit it anymore. But if one admits that it would be bad if not a single white person were left in America, then it means that we really are having that kind of. So then what's the number? Today it's 60%, used to be, 99%, whatever. What's the number? People don't want to have that conversation. But, and you wouldn't really have to have the conversation so urgently if there were not an active policy in the United States, now over decades, of the mass importation of people who are not particularly connected to the historic American culture and political tradition. Okay, speaking of race, I know I'm running late. I don't care. Because this ties in too perfectly, and it's a real knife in the heart situation. Sydney Sweeney, you remember. Sweet Sydney Sweeney. She did that jeans ad, and the joke was Sydney Sweeney's got great jeans because she's hot, because she's physically attractive, which comes a little bit from diet and exercise, but she's just, some people are just born hotter than others. I don't know, and she's just a Hollywood starlet. Makes sense. So Sydney Sweeney has great jeans, and they never said that's racist. Now, they wouldn't have said it if it were a hot black girl, but because it was a hot white girl, they did say it. You're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to talk about beauty when it comes to white people like Sydney Sweeney. And you remember her response after months and months of non-controversy. Her response when asked by this GQ journalist was this.
The president tweeted about the jeans ad, or Truth Socialed about the jeans ad, and that just seems to me like a very crazy moment for anyone, and I wondered what that was like.
It was surreal.
Wasn't the liberal journalist, wasn't that bad? I mean, what was that like? And then Sydney Sweeney just dead eyes, cold blood, stares right into her soul, goes, it was surreal. Then she goes on further. The journalist says, well, I want to give you the opportunity to talk about this thing that's causing you a lot of problems. And Sydney Sweeney says, yeah, when I want to talk, I'll talk. And it was great. We all loved it because she didn't back down. And there are reports that she's a registered Republican and all the rest. Well, nothing gold can stay, my friends. She tells People magazine, I was honestly surprised by the reaction. I did it because I love the jeans and love the brand. I don't support the views some people chose to connect to the campaign. Many have assigned motives and labels to me that just aren't true. Anyone that knows me knows I'm always trying to bring people together. So she apologizes. This is a kind of implicit, it's not a full apology. She says, I love the jeans, I love the brand. But she says, people are ascribing these views to me. Now, again, are they talking about these funny memes where they're saying she's like a Nazi now? She's said like an Aryan goddess or something. Okay, yes, she's not. I don't think Sydney Sweeney's a Nazi or anything like that. Or is she disavowing this broader association with the American right? Here's where the line that gets me. She goes, I'm against hate and divisiveness. Yes, of course we all are. And the left primarily promotes that, and that's evident in the social scientific numbers, about disowning family members and supporting political violence, and they support it. But they use that language. You don't really hear this from the right. Stop hate, stop hate. It's always the left-wing organizations that use this. Be kind, stop hate, don't divide us. And she starts using that language. In the past, my stance has been to never respond to negative or positive press, but recently I've come to realize that my silence regarding this issue has only widened the divide, not closed it. So I hope this new year brings more focus to what connects us instead of what divides us. All right, so this is liberals in Hollywood telling her she's got to change strategy, and they're exploiting her, and she's getting bad advice. I get why she's doing it. I'm speculating, but I think the reason she's doing this is because her recent movies have bombed. So she had this movie in November of this year. It only made $1.31 million at the box office. Christie, August was a flop. This movie, Americana, $500,000 reportedly. And also in August, Eden, $1 million. Echo Valley was not released at the box office, but it had low streams, I guess, in June. These are movies I'd never heard of until this morning. So obviously they didn't do very well. And I think probably it's publicists and Hollywood libs saying, hey, you're getting crushed because you did that jeans ad and you need to come out and apologize. And that's why these movies are bombing. And I don't think that's true. I have this. Here we go. Don't take my word for it. Take the New York Times. 25 movies, many stars, 0 hits. Hollywood falls to new lows. It's been a brutal 3 months for dramas and comedies. This is from November 2025. So the movies are bombing, and it's not Sydney Sweeney's fault. It's the movie's fault. It's not Sydney Sweeney doing a commercial that was an excellent commercial and got a lot of attention. It's the movies that are bombing. And there's an irony here, because I bet what's happening is these libs in Hollywood are telling Sydney Sweeney, someone sent her this video. She needs to hear this. Someone's telling her in Hollywood, your movies are bombing because people associate you with the right now, and that jeans ad was a mistake, and you need to apologize for it. And she comes out and does this kind of tepid, slight apology, and she takes their advice. And ironically, I think the reason her movies are bombing is because all the movies are bombing because the liberals no longer have the cultural dominance they once did. The cultural dominance of the left was expressed by the hit movies, by the common culture. The fact that those don't really exist anymore proves to you that the left has lost its cultural hegemony, which is good. Now, we need to build something in its place. That's good. But now you got these libs. It's this desperate grasp, this last gasp to say, hey, no, hold on. We can still force Sydney Sweeney to toe the line. We'll give you your hit movies back. You can't. The liberals won't give you your hit movies back. There are no hit movies anymore. Don't fall for it, Sydney. Don't fall for it. I read that the minute I saw that headline from People, I said, oh no. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief, so dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. I know it's a fallen world. People are they're gonna squish a little bit, but you don't have to, Sydney. They won't give you your hit movies back. Hold firm. It's a Faustian bargain. Don't do it. Wow, huge story. One of the main stories I wanted to talk about today. I don't have time. Someone opened fire on Tim Pool's house. How's that for a teaser? We'll get to that tomorrow. Today's Music Monday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, Canada, WLAS at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.
All of this is an illusion, an echo of a voice that has died. And soon that echo will cease.
They say that Merlin is mad. They say he was a king in Dyfed, the son of a princess of lost Atlantis. They say the future and the past are known to him, that the fire and the wind tell him their secrets, that the magic of the hill folk and druids come forth at his easy command. They say he slew hundreds, hundreds, do you hear? That the world burned and trembled at his wrath.
The Merlin died long before you and I were born.
Merlin Emrys has returned to the land of the living.
Vortigern is gone. Rome is gone. The Saxon is here.
Saxon Hengist has assembled the greatest war host ever seen in the Island of the Mighty. And before the summer is through, he means to take the throne. And he will have it. If we are too busy squabbling amongst ourselves to take up arms against him, here is your hope. A king will arise to hold all Britain in his hand. A high king who will be the wonder of the world.
You. To a future of peace.
There'll be no peace in these lands till we are all dust.
Men of the Island of the Mighty, you stand together. You stand as Britons. You stand as one.
Great darkness is falling upon this land. These brothers are our only hope to stand against it.
Not our only hope.
They say Merlin slew 70 men with his own hands. At Cathay, he slew 500.
No man is capable of such a thing.
The mortal man.